He may be a precinct worker or a president. He may give his talents at the courthouse, the state house, the White House. He may be a civil servant or a senator, a candidate or a campaign worker, a winner or a loser. But he must be a participant and not a spectator.
Hi, Senator, Mr. Mayor, good to be with both of you. We're coming to you from Charlotte, of course, and of course it's a big banking community. I know the Senator will have a lot to say about this, but the Mayor can respond too. My question's about gentrification, specifically in a community like this, and how in a banking town we can make sure that the poor aren't left out and marginalized any more than they already are.
Well, I always use, because everyone saw it on television, I use New Orleans as the easiest example to relate to. You know, what I think a lot of people in the country saw the aftermath of the hurricane in New Orleans, and they said, well, how, you know, I had no idea poverty was this bad, and how could something like that happen? And of course, what was happening in New Orleans was what's happened in communities all over the country. Basically, you have affluent whites who either send their kids to private school or they move out to the suburbs. You have poor people clustered together, and the most obvious example was in the 9th Ward of New Orleans. The truth is that what we saw in New Orleans is true in urban areas all over this country. It's exactly what's happened in America. And the question is, I said earlier, because I do believe it deeply, that everybody has equal worth. Well, if everybody has equal worth, we ought to be willing to actually live together. And that means we shouldn't have poor black people clustered in one part of the city and affluent whites in another. It is not good. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for either group. We need both economic and racial integration of cities and neighborhoods. It's good for everybody involved. And in order to give these people who are struggling the kind of chance that they need, and I might add, I've now been in probably 30 to 35 states over the last 9 months meeting with families who live in poverty, no press, no media, just me and them. And they violate every stereotype that's out there. You know, they're lazy and no account and irresponsible. The first thing is, if you go to a place that's helping people who are struggling, mostly what you see is women. And most of them are single mothers. They love their kids more than they love themselves, and they would do anything for their children. They are working 2 or 3 jobs, 16 hours a day, 6 or 7 days a week, all so that their kids can have a better life. Now, these are the kind of people that we should embrace, but they need a chance, and they're faced with such hurdles, because it's happened with those people in New Orleans. They, you know, why did the poor get hurt the worst by the hurricane? Because they always get hurt the worst. I mean, they live on the edge of a razor every day. And the way I always ask people to think about this, you know, something bad happens to all of us. All of us. In my case, your wife gets sick. She's actually doing great now, but you know, your wife gets sick or your child gets sick, and you run into some financial problem you don't expect. Bad things happen to all of us. Here's the difference. If you're poor, and if you're like those folks living in the 9th Ward of New Orleans, when something bad happens, you're in a ditch, and you can't get out, because there's nothing to get you out. You know, people will say to me, I had, after the hurricane, people say, why didn't these folks leave? You know, there were warnings. They were told to leave. They didn't leave, of course, because they couldn't leave. They didn't have a car. They didn't have a bank account. They didn't have a credit card. They didn't have any way to leave. They had no way to take care of themselves if they had left. So these are the struggles that these folks face every single day. And the vast majority of them work. They're good people. They're trying to do what's right, and they just need a chance. I think there are a lot of things to be done. I don't want to spend all this discussion on that. You know, we need to do something to, I think we ought to raise the minimum wage in the country so that people who are working for minimum wage can earn a decent standard of living. I think healthcare system is in crisis in America. You know, we can't continue to do this. You know, people can't pay for their health care. Millions of people, 46 million now, don't have health care covered. We have to address the health care problem. These folks who don't have any assets, don't have bank accounts, et cetera, don't have anything to fall back on, we need to help them create assets, help them help themselves. I don't mean just give them stuff. I'm talking about us helping them when they help themselves. Access to decent housing. There's a whole group of things that we need to do. But the starting place is to convince the country that this is a huge moral cause in our country. I saw this publication overseas after the hurricane hit, and it had pictures of the victims in New Orleans, and it had, the headline was, this is what the world is saying, by the way, the headline was "The Shaming of America." The world is watching now to see, now that we've seen that people can't claim anymore we don't know what's going on. The world is watching to see what we're going to do about it. I mean, are we actually going to step to the plate and give these people a chance to help themselves? Or are we just going to continue doing what we've been doing? You know, that question is with us. And I might add, this is an issue. If I could convince young people to make this the cause of your generation, I would feel like I've done something great with my life. If I did nothing else but that, I would be happy. Because these folks have never had, I can tell you from sitting in rooms with them for hour after hour after hour, they have never had a champion. They have no idea what it's like to have somebody stand up for them. They scrape and fight and hang on by their fingernails just to survive every single day. They're worried about their kids eating. It's not right. It's not right, and you can do something about it.